Good morning, everyone. I'm really thrilled that I get to follow Ron this morning because he set me up beautifully. And I'm really excited to see what he's doing. And I want to be there on October the 11th taking part, Ron. So I have a confession. I started out as a fashion designer. I have no scientific training. I'm not a scientist. But like other innovators here at Launch, I'm really passionate about how we can create sustainable, compostable materials that are kind to us and the planet. And I believe that we need to look to biological systems to start solving these problems. How can we harness living organisms to make things for us? So for me, the journey started by asking how else we might create a sustainable textile for apparel. And specifically, how else might we create a piece of clothing? And through a collaboration with a biologist, we created a series of experimental jackets, and these were grown using a living culture of yeast and bacteria. So we grew cellulose in a vat of liquid rather than from a plant in a field. And we were able to form these sheet materials, and I turned them into a series of experimental clothing pieces. And for me, it was a complete revelation. It was a whole new way of thinking about how to create fiber, material, and form into a product. We were using a living organism to grow something for us, much like Sam has just shown you. As a designer, I guess my drive comes from wanting to see things out in the world. My expertise is in having vision, trying things out, and sharing those stories. So instead of coming to Launch to just pursue one material towards a product development, what I'm really excited about is the whole landscape that's emerging of living materials and biological systems. So I would like to build a platform that actually enables living material innovation. The jacket, the Grown Biocouture project, caught the attention of TED, and I was made a fellow. And for my TED talk, I was wearing a grown jacket, and I joked on stage about how if I went out in the rain, it would fall apart. Nearly 600,000 views later, I'm still receiving emails from people wanting to help solve that problem, grow their own materials, and really it started a global conversation. That impact led to all sorts of other projects spinning out. So, for example, these girls won 2 ethical awards for design in the UK by growing and experimenting with their materials. Other design researchers went on to seek scientists that they could collaborate with to look at growing furniture, packaging. And so really, I guess what struck me was the impact that can come from one person experimenting with an idea, sharing that, and then a chain reaction of innovation that can occur around it. We are used to thinking about open source software. We're familiar with open source hardware. People are probably familiar with the rapidly rising 3D print communities that are springing up all around the world. And certainly a proliferation of maker fairs. And at the same time, we have renewed interest in organic food production and unconventional urban farmers exploring how to use waste in urban centers. I think what's exciting about materials and the approaches is that what if we could think about materials in the same way that we think about cooking or gardening? If it was approachable in that way, so that people at home could start to experiment with these materials for themselves. What happens in that thinking when you bring these kinds of things together? So meet Simon. By day, he's a microbiologist, but evenings and weekends, Simon's working on a palette of living color. He's putting together the world's biggest library of living microbes that produce pigment and light for use by other designers and artists to experiment with biological materials. He's also working with algae at creating textiles. But what he's really excited about is collaborating with non-scientists to see how to apply creativity to his microbial world. This is Serene. She's a final year fashion student in Israel, and for her project, she wanted to build something that was alive into her clothing. She hunted down a professor at the university who showed her how certain types of bacteria can be used to grow pattern. And this is, on the left, the Intel Developer Forum. And they were exploring how acetic acid, the byproduct of a fermentation system, could be used to power a battery that would run their latest low-power chip. On the right, my friends at Conductive in London have developed a non-toxic, water-soluble, conductive paint that can be applied to any surface, including your own skin. So you could paint or draw an electronic circuit onto a grown material. And for me, what's exciting is how these things begin to come together. If we imagine how we might take a hacking approach to materials, something really interesting could be going on. So what happens? Imagine if we could bring together scientists and engineers with designers, artisans, and native knowledge. Right now, it's possible to get help from various community platforms in terms of helping you to design and build a device from electronic parts. But imagine if you could have that help to build biological materials. Material development is mostly in the hands of big chemical companies, large manufacturing. To actually create your own fibers or a material for yourself would seem to be beyond the expertise of most people. And yet, that's exactly what I was doing with a recipe and a simple fermentation method for cellulose at home for that series of garments. So as a complete non-scientist, I was able to do that. I think this is, what's happening is that this is not the future. This is happening here and now. For me, coming and hearing the stories this week of the other launch innovators has really been a proof of concept. There's a spectrum of innovation, which is guys doing everything from growing mushroom materials under their beds, cooking up fibers at the stove, through to harnessing indigenous knowledge of natural systems, right through to designing synthetic organisms and programming proteins. What this is a movement of living material innovation, and it's happening in academic labs, in design studios, in innovative companies, and in your community. So thousands of people around the world are really inspired by the work that the companies that we've seen present here this week are doing. And they want to get involved too. And they may not be from your discipline or have your background or education, but they have their own expertise that they can bring to this. And that's a really powerful thing. So what I want to do is catalyze this coming together of biology and creativity. My vision is an open and global collaborative platform that will inspire and inform living material innovators. I want to build something that democratizes the resources and really starts to harness all the other kinds of expertise that could contribute towards thinking about living materials. So I think the thinking for me right now is in terms of inspiration, we need to introduce people to the kinds of stories that we've been hearing. Who are the individuals, the groups, the companies who are doing really exciting work? How did they make their discoveries? And how can that be shared for you to carry on and innovate for yourself? How can we inform you by showing how-to videos, downloadable PDFs of recipes or methods, links to other people or groups that are doing things, funding opportunities? How can we amplify a whole movement of innovation around these kinds of approaches and materials? So I would like your help here. I think it's fantastic timing to be at launch. In my thinking process, there are 3 things that I feel I really need right now. One is in terms of team building, particularly an advisory board. What's the kind of expertise that's going to come together to really make this happen? Who is going to really benefit from an entire ecosystem of living material innovation? And how would you use that? I can imagine that in addition to individuals and groups and academia, this could be really powerful for companies who are looking for inspiration with their R&D, who are maybe stuck on something, who want to take it to a bigger, diverse audience, who are all thinking about living organisms, growing materials, creating product in new ways. So, and finally, what is the business model for this? Is it a for-profit, non-profit, some kind of hybrid? It would be really great to get your feedback on that. Finally, I just wanted to end with this very first issue of the Whole Earth catalogue. The intention behind this is exactly the same ambition that I have for the living material movement, and that is to look at the power of the individual, conducting your own education, finding your own inspiration and from others, and then shaping our environment and bringing it to whoever is interested. How can we come together here to facilitate this? I really look forward to your ideas. Thank you very much.